I could drive anywhere. I could take the bus. I could go at any time. I don't have to worry about the heat, safety, etc. But going back home, like, to be honest with you, it's really hard to adjust back to the culture of the Philippines.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm used to being busy.
Yeah.
So we kind of joke around about errands. But when you have no errands, you're kind of just sitting at home. What do we do? It's patience, right? Like, watching my parents move here, they made a lot of sacrifices. And I'm sure there was times, 10 years into it, they're like, this is tough. I don't feel like I'm seeing the growth that I want. But then now, 10, 20, 30 years later, they see it in their children. They see it in themselves too, don't get me wrong. But to your point, it elaborates on the fact that unfortunately, it takes time and patience. And unfortunately, you don't see the results right away. But allowing people to be themselves by being personal with them, I think is super important. And sometimes it's a little awkward because you're like trying to get to know people. They're like, why is she asking so many questions, right? But like I said, you don't know what it's going to take for them to feel included until you ask those questions. So in that particular example, once we found out there was a new baby, we sent him a congratulations card. We talk about his kids all the time, and he has 3 girls. So every day he's basically like, I live in a zoo.
I think as much as immigrants are educated about Canadian work culture, people who are born here, raised here, have only experienced Canadian work culture should also be educated about other work cultures. That is very important, and many organizations miss on doing that. Hello everybody, back again with another episode of Newcomers to Trailblazers. I am going to do something today that I'm very proud of. I'll give you an example. How many of you can tell that you have interviewed your boss? Not many of you, yay? Not many of you. But today I have the privilege of interviewing my boss. Actually, no. I have the privilege of interviewing my boss's boss, my super boss. You cannot say that. You cannot beat me. I am amazing. I am way out of the world today. And to follow more of me, you know what you do. You have to follow me on Instagram. You have to follow me on LinkedIn. You have to subscribe to Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere that we are. Oh, we newly started on Amazon Music also. So don't forget to follow there as well. Now, here is my question. Now that I said I am going to be interviewing my boss's boss, should I be scared? Luckily, I don't have to be, simply because I will not lose my job today. See? It's an amazing day. I can ask anything I want to my boss and she isn't gonna fire me. Oh God, now this is an amazing day. So today we have Joanna Sanchez. Hi.
Hi, hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am amazing. So Joanna actually moved to Canada when she was very young, and we are going to learn much, much more about her. And when I said boss's boss, she works for C-SPAN. I also apparently work for C-SPAN. And today is the day she isn't going to fire me. So come with us, let's have some fun, and let's drill her, and we will ask her such fiery questions. She's going to hate me tomorrow and still forgive me the day after. Ooh.
So to your point, today I'm just Joanna. I know you said I'm your boss's boss.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm really excited.
Okay.
And I'm ready for all your questions.
Ooh. See, this is the best thing about interviewing people. The actual work goes into preparing the questions, not answering them. Yeah.
Good point. We'll see how well I answer the questions today.
Okay. So, Joanna, let's start with Canadian small talk, the famous Canadian small talk. How are you?
Good. Nice weather today. Sun was out.
Yeah, nice. Actually, I should say today has been a nice weather because last 2 weeks we have been drowning in depression because of all the cloudy weather. But today has been really good, sunny yet cold weather, which is still okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, let's dive into questions.
Sure.
Okay, so I clearly mentioned in the introduction that you moved to Canada in a very young age, right? And when I spoke the last time to you, you also mentioned you have a large family. So Can you tell us a bit about how it was growing up with so many siblings and what kind of activities did you do? How did you make sure your energy was out?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So to your point, I have one older sister
Mhm.
and two younger brothers, and we're all within 6 years. So when I think about that, I mean, to be honest with you, I think mostly about my mom and how she was able to have four young kids. But having said that, I mean, growing up, it's funny, we only know what we know.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
There was always an activity to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have to admit, some of the activities were still a little bit more gender based. So my
Mm-hmm.
little brothers loved to play hockey. My sister and I, we kind of got a little bit into sports, a little bit of dance, but for the most part, we did shopping,
Okay.
watching movies, getting
Mhm.
nails done, all the girly stuff.
Mhm.
But having said that, growing up, I do remember we would play a lot of games as
Mhm.
well, just because, when you're together.
Mhm.
And it was fun, and it also allowed us to interact more with people and understand differences.
Mhm.
Even though we were so close in age, we're
Yeah.
all quite different, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter of the gender, personalities, etc.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was really nice. But at the same time, I mean, honestly, it was also very much like a somewhat competitive environment,
Mhm.
right? When you're really close in age,
Mhm.
you're always fighting, well, not fighting, but
Mhm.
competing against your parents' attention, time. Like time, of course, is really important. My siblings or my brothers growing up, they both played hockey. So
Mhm.
that also took up a lot of time.
Mhm.
But yeah, again, it was fun, I would say. And I still get along really well with my siblings and try to spend as much time with them as possible. So,
Okay. So, like you rightly mentioned, if the siblings are closer to each other's age, I think the most important factor that goes missing is the way elder sibling behaves like another parent. I think that part goes missing. So many of my friends who have a good age difference between siblings, they have always said, "Oh, I look at my younger brother like a son because a lot of age gap, right?" But having siblings that are closer to your age, 6 years and four kids, number two, you are, right?
yes, number two.
I really appreciate your mom.
I know, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate your mom. Not just the delivery part, but even apart from that, raising four kids who are closer to each other's age and their tantrums and their excitement and their priorities, it must have been a whirlwind.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I would say that she definitely had a lot of help.
Yeah.
Family and support is really, really important, right? So my sister and I are only a year and 21 days apart. And then my brother, who's number three, we're only like a year and a half.
Mhm.
So it's a lot all at once, right? Having said that, growing up, my grandma, my dad's mom, always considered us as her eighth and ninth child.
Yeah.
Not that she didn't the younger boys, but just because of the age difference.
Mhm.
And for a couple of years, we actually did live with my grandma as well. So in short, really value my mom. I really appreciate all that she's done. But when they say it takes a
Village to raise a child.
yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's important to have that support system.
Mhm.
And it's also the appreciation of your family in different ways.
As a Canadian immigrant, I would say it requires a childcare to raise a child. Along with the village, it requires a childcare to raise a child. It is very important. But yeah, you rightly said, it is not just two parents who raise the child. It requires a lot of effort from teachers, from grandparents, from siblings. I- Talking about it exhausts me. I really appreciate your mom. But okay,
Yeah.
let's move
And
on.
maybe just to add to that, like the one thing that I saw that, now being in my 40s and seeing how life has evolved. So my mom passed away 2 years ago. And the value that I saw in having such a strong support system. So my aunt, my dad's sister, is only 5 years older than me. So I grew up with her and all of my dad's siblings as well. So having that support system became so beneficial because even though I don't have my mom anymore, I still have so many people that can support me and act like my mom.
Yeah.
And, growing up, you don't value those things until you see it. And then you're like, okay, I see now why I was so close to all of those people growing up. Because eventually, as I get older, I'm going to rely on them more. So.
When you put it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to your point, like daycare isn't going to do that for you.
Tell me about it. Yeah. Daycare isn't going to do that for you, unfortunately. Having said that, so I remember when I was growing up, I have only one sibling. But when I remember I was growing up, I was subjected to gender roles, just like any other Asian upbringing. And because I was leaning towards the gender that I was not born in, so meaning I did a lot of boys' activities, a lot of running around, a lot of breaking my knees and falling down and jumping from one compound to the other and cycling your sorrows away and whatnot, right? I've done a lot of things. So for me, I was the weird kid in school. Having identified as a weird kid has its own advantages and disadvantages, I should say. For me, I got the opportunity not just to experience one gender type, I got the opportunity to experience the other defined gender type as well. So I was very outgoing. I was not shy. I was not, what is the right word, submissive. I was very dominant. I was going out. So that gave me an opportunity. But the disadvantage of being a weird kid is that people like being friends with you only to a point that they keep their distance. Oh, it's not good to be friends with her. They'll keep that distance. I sometimes enjoyed it and sometimes I didn't. How was your childhood, considering that you moved when you were a child and the experience must have been, was it? I know children adapt very quickly to cultural changes. I have seen a lot of parents say that to me as well. But having moving as a child, you grew up in an American school, you studied in an American school, even in the Philippines. What kind of challenges did you face in integrating culturally into Canadian society?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. And maybe just to start off, one of the things that I really appreciate about my parents is although there was two boys, two girls, and although my dad always wanted a boy, they never really enforced us to only stick to gender type activities. They were very much open to like, you can try whatever you'd like, right? Now, I have to say, naturally, we kind of steered towards the gender specific activities. But having said that, like my dad would never say, no, you can't play sports. I was never interested in hockey, but I'm pretty sure he would have said yes if I wanted to. But in terms of the being weird or being felt out of place, right? So I moved to Canada when I was 10 years old, right? And I guess as a child, maybe I was a little bit more aware, or I had to be more aware because naturally you come in and you notice right away, okay, I'm a little bit different, right? And then keep in mind as well, we're not just new coming in. Language wasn't too bad, but it was also the culture and even something as simple as winter.
Oh, yeah.
We've never experienced winter, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember my dad, he would buy us these like Sorel boots. And I remember being so upset because I was like, there's no way people wear this here. Like, you're going to make me look like I'm a weirdo, right?
Yeah.
But eventually I learned that like, this is what people wear, right? So in short, I mean, I would say two things. I definitely took a few years, I think, to get to know myself a little bit more. I was quiet when I first moved here because naturally you're still adapting, right? You're trying to figure out what's right, what's wrong, etc. But to be honest with it, I like being different.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how I view myself now.
Mhm.
I think it's okay to be unique.
Mhm.
And it also makes me appreciate other people's uniqueness, having
Yeah.
been through that, right?
Yeah.
Now, we still all adapt. At the end of the day, we all still want to make friends and fit in somewhere.
Mhm.
But I remember even in grade school, so when I moved here, I went into grade 4.
Mhm.
There was enough diversity, to be honest with you, so
Okay.
that I can relate with other people that are also immigrants or maybe weird.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe we shouldn't be using the term weird, but we'll
Anymore.
use it anyways. But
Yeah.
I like people that are unique. So
Yeah.
even like growing up, I was drawn into people that had experiences that was different, that had a different viewpoint, right? So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think that's kind of how I view my experience. And more than anything, I see it now really as a valuable experience.
So many immigrants, when they come in, I realize that they want things done immediately. They don't realize is that it takes time to integrate into a new culture. And I keep telling every immigrant that I see, it is not about moving to a different country. Even if you move from one organization to another organization, or if you move from one province to another province, there are going to be different types of celebration, different types of diversity, different types of uh, or upbringing people have, and different. So it is different, right? And it is going to take time for somebody to learn from scratch. But many immigrants that I see coming in today, they have this expectation that, oh, I want to be integrating today with Canada. I want a job tomorrow. I want to live an amazing life day after. And my kids will become superstars in probably 10 days' time, which is ambitious. It does happen to some people, I have to say. It does happen with some people. Some people land with jobs, which is good. But irrespective of the age, I've realized that to integrate with the society, it takes some time, and many people do not take that into consideration, which is actually such a loss. But thank you for sharing your story. Now that we have spoken about how you are very connected to family and you moved when you were 10 years old, I want to ask the reverse question. Let's assume you go back to the Philippines, and how often you go back to the Philippines. And when you go back, do you experience a reverse culture shock?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So when I was younger, my parents sent us to the Philippines quite often. Luckily, they were able to, and it was mostly for my grandma. So my grandma really missed us. And then there was a moment in time, probably like university, when you just started working. You don't go home as often. You're busy, it costs money, etc. Um, but more recently, there was a point in time I was going home maybe once a year, every 2 years.
Mhm.
And then I kind of stopped because, to be honest, it was just so much travel.
Mhm.
And I just felt that there was so much in the world to see. So, ironically enough, so when my mom had passed away, her ashes up in the Philippines. So, in a way, I kind of find that it's a reason for us to go back to visit. And it was kind of her way to also say, hey, kids, you better go back home, right? Now, do we get a reverse culture shock? Yes and no. So in general, like the Philippines is very westernized. Our family, because we grew up with them and because we were so close, we just have this bond, right? Like when you grow up so closely together between the age of 0 to 10, no matter what, you have that bond, right? So that's really nice. But to be honest with you, the biggest and hardest adjustment is not having the same independence as we have here in Canada.
That's true.
So back in the Philippines, things that we think are great, like having someone to drive you around, having someone to help you with errands,
Household
dishes,
chores, yeah.
household. I'm not saying everybody lives that way, but
Yeah.
we do have that privilege. We don't have that here in Canada, right?
Yeah.
But here in Canada, I also don't have restrictions of where I can go.
Yeah.
I can drive anywhere. I can take the bus. I can go at any time. I don't have to worry about the heat, safety, etc. But going back home, like to be honest with you, it's really hard to adjust back to the culture of the Philippines.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm used to being busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we kind of joke around about errands. But when you have no errands, you're kind of just sitting at home. Like, what do we do? Now we can do activities, but unfortunately in the city, activity, we call it mall life, where you just go to the malls, walk around, eat, etc. So I personally and my siblings, we miss like having activities. So for the most part, what we try to do is we have a short visit in the city, see all the family, and then we try to do another trip where there's a little bit more activities.
Mountains.
Yeah, somewhere new. So I think that's really helped. But it's really interesting, right, when you talk about change and adapting. The things that sometimes we complain about in Canada, and then you go back to your home country and you're like, I miss those things a little bit. I wouldn't mind having somebody at home to do my laundry and cooking. But then when it's gone, you're like, okay, what do we do now? Right?
That is actually true. And like you rightly said, not many people have that privilege, and some people do. Similar, it is very similar from where I come. It is similar in India. I think it is similar in India. It is similar in Asian continent per se. And so many people who send their kids abroad to study, when they reach out to me to say, hey, you know what, please support my child because he has never or she has never done any household work ever in life. Everything was taken care of by somebody else. Just teach them. Like, what do I teach? Like, how do I? What are you expecting from me? So that is something. By not learning, you are not learning about adulthood. That is what is the most important missing piece. And when I go back home, I think that missing piece hits me harder than when I actually stay here. So I relate to most of your experience. And you're right. You rightly also said that you cannot go outside as much as you want be- because of whatever constraints that there are. And I agree to that as well.
Yeah. To add to your point, like the ability to be able to do household work and be, I'm calling it domestic. So my goddaughter moved here to the Philippines for school, and her parents are like, to your point, teach her to do all these things, right? But the sense of accomplishment when, as an individual, you are able to do all those things, it's so empowering.
Yeah.
Right? To be able, like the little things. I did laundry, I cooked, I took the bus. It's like little basic things, but I feel like, to your point, it's really important to give people that opportunity.
Yeah.
Because it gives them a sense of empowerment that we take for granted. The little things, being able to do all those things gives you like such a big sense of accomplishment.
It is. It is actually. So every time, I should tell you this, every time I finish my laundry and I fold those clothes and I put them in their place, I feel such accomplishment every time, every time. I hate doing laundry. So when I actually do it, I feel such accomplishment. And I try and procrastinate as much as possible. But when I actually get to it and when I do it, I feel such accomplishment. Simply because it is not a very big task, right? It is a very mundane task. Irrespective of that, when you are putting yourself through the process of doing your domestic work, you still feel like an adult. You still feel like you have accomplished. And that is the very definition of being an adult. And it is okay. Nobody is going to teach your children. I don't want to teach your child. But yeah. Okay. We have spoken about the advantages of being a Canadian immigrant and the disadvantages as well, right? From a cultural difference perspective. Let's also speak about what is the best part. So, what is the best part or the most amazing part of being a Canadian immigrant? Is there a particular aspect to living in Canada that you cherish the most?
Okay, that's a very good question. I can answer it in many ways. So I'll answer it and you can let me know. Off the switch it. So, okay, what are the advantages of being a Canadian immigrant? So maybe I will communicate it in a way from like my parents' perspective. Because when my parents moved here, it was a sacrifice for them to move here, right? But they saw the opportunity for me and my siblings, right? And really for me, it's again the independence. So the ability for me and my siblings to find our way through life, but to actually have that opportunity, honestly, to be who we want to be. And I know that's very simple, but when you come from another country, depending on your situation, a lot of what my parents did was because of their parents. Right? They could do what we do now. And then it's again the independence, the ability to be able to go to school. The ability to also, honestly, after school, be able to apply it to a job. And as much as there's a lot of limitations for immigrants here in Canada, I always tell people work hard, be nice to people, stay focused, and you'll do well. Right? Like the rest, like it's not, I shouldn't say overly complicated, but there's kind of an opportunity for everybody. Some might take longer than some. Sometimes it's not fair, but we all know even back home in our countries, it's also not very fair. But the opportunity for me is really what I see. I go back home and have a lot of family I grew up with. And honestly, they just envy what we do here, what we've become, what we could study. And, the fact that we can buy a house here, drive on our own, drive across the country to visit the mountains, etc. Honestly, that I think is the biggest advantage. But it comes with a sacrifice, right? Like I don't underestimate the sacrifices that my parents went through. And to your point, it's patience, right? Like watching my parents move here, they made a lot of sacrifices. And I'm sure there was times, 10 years into it, they're like, this is tough. I don't feel like I'm seeing the growth that I want. But then now, 10, 20, 30 years later, they see it in their children. They see it in themselves too, don't get me wrong. But to your point, it elaborates on the fact that unfortunately, it takes time and patience. And unfortunately, you don't see the results right away.
You don't see the results right away. I think that is the biggest takeaway. Irrespective of what kind of work you do, irrespective of how your personal life is, people cannot expect results right away, which is a very good thing. What I learned as a Canadian immigrant is that slow and steady does win the race. Because when I moved, all in my head, it was like, oh, I have to get this done, I have to get this done, I have to get this done. Just like any other immigrant, I wanted to be quick because I come from a country where hustle culture is a thing, urgency is a thing. Everything is now, everything is important, everything is urgent, everything has to be done now. When I moved and there was a pace, initially it annoyed the heck out of me. Initially, it drove me nuts. I was like, what is wrong with these people? Why is everything slow? The urgency has, in my home country, the urgency gave me the opportunity to grow fast, be it career, be it health wise, whatever. It gave me the opportunity to grow fast, but it also limited the opportunity to learn about myself. So, giving that space and time here in this country gives me the opportunity to sit down with myself, sit down with my family, learn about each other, the relationship that we are building. I have more friends today than I had back home. I would still know people. I know a lot of people. The amount of emotional dependency I used to have was lesser because we were always in a hurry. We were doing the next best thing that comes out. But here, because everything is settled down and everything is has its own pace. I'm able to make good relationships, and I think that is one of the best things about being a Canadian.
No, thanks for sharing that. I think to your point, it's all about balance, right? Because you learn so much back home that you apply here.
Yeah.
But that in this environment, you also see an opportunity to do something different. And to your point, and maybe that's what we need to relay to immigrants, that slow and steady, but take every opportunity to learn and grow, right? Because with that, there's ways to learn and grow. So yeah, no, that's very insightful.
So we have spoken about immigrants, we have spoken about you, your family, your journey, and all of that. I'm going to ask you a question related to your work, but not related to your work as well, because we are very mindful here.
Yeah.
All right. You're a HR leader. You're a HR leader, and I have seen you demonstrate inclusion in various aspects, right? So, from your point of view, how do you think organizations can best welcome and support immigrant employees, especially people who are starting their first job in Canada?
No, that's a very good question. And I would say, like, to your point, whether you're an immigrant or not, the onboarding experience is really important. So first of all, work is work, right? And interestingly enough, I interviewed someone today and I said, in your future job, if you had a dream job, what are some things that you're looking for? And everybody always talks about work, right? And she actually mentioned personal components. I love donut day. I like having special things to look forward to, right? So I guess my point is like no matter what, we all need the time to get to know each other on a personal level, right? If we don't get to know each other on a personal level, we don't know what it is that that person needs in order to succeed in a new environment. And if we don't get the time to know each other, we're also not going to have the time to know if somebody's going through something really tough, how can we support them, right? I remember there was this one gentleman that worked for us. It was during COVID, so it was mainly online, right? And you can tell on the call he was very, very frazzled. And he was also an immigrant. Used to work in Japan. He's from Pakistan originally. So anyways, I could tell he was really frazzled. And I'm like, okay, is everything okay? Like, there's something going on. So long story short, he goes, oh, my wife just had a baby 2 days ago. And we're all like, what? And on top of that, it was the third girl they're all really young. And we're all like, why are you working? Like, take the few days off, etc. And the poor gentleman, he's like, I didn't know. I didn't know you guys would care. And everyone's asking about, the newborn, etc. So eventually he shared with me, he was like, Joanna, in Japan, that's not the culture, right?
Very different, yeah.
And up to today, he tells me all the time, I really appreciate just how you treat people like people.
Yeah.
Right? When the boss walks by, and I don't like talking about the boss because I don't view things that way. Like most people think, oh, we have to stop talking. No, like that, like we have to take the time to get to know each other, right? So in short, I know it seems very basic, but allowing people to be themselves by being personal with them, I think is super important. And sometimes it's a little awkward because you're like trying to get to know people and they're like, why is she asking so many questions, right? But like I said, you don't know what it's going to take for them to feel included until you ask those questions. So in that particular example, once we found out there was a new baby, we sent him a congratulations card. We talk about his kids all the time. And he has 3 girls. So every day he's basically like, I live in a zoo.
Panic mode.
Yeah, exactly. So now we understand him better. But think about how that makes somebody included, right?
Yeah.
That it's okay, I can share this. People understand that, I live in a chaotic world with 3 girls. But we all have our differences and things that we struggle with, whether we're an immigrant or not. So I think in general, that's kind of my approach. And trust me, it's not always easy. We're work, right? So to your point, taking the time to actually like pause and get to know people and not just make it about work, I think is important.
Okay. Removing the immigrant component out of it, treat people like people, learn about people. Only if you ask the questions on how they feel inclusion, you will only know then what inclusion means to them.
I think so.
Ooh. I said it in 3 sentences, but it was very meaningful. And thank you.
Oh, you're very good at like summarizing my points.
I'm getting a promotion.
We just now have to put that in email. She's very great at summarizing points.
Yeah. Okay. So, I've also mentioned, we spoke about what your leadership is like, right? As an inclusive leader, what your leadership is like. I'm going to continue that question. You are a Philippines-born immigrant in Canada in a leadership position. To me, it's an inspiration because to me, representation matters. When I started looking for jobs in Canada, and I started researching about the company, just like everybody else does, right? When I started researching about the company, I would go into LinkedIn and see, okay, what all departments they have, and then how many people of color they have. Yeah, that was a natural research point for me to research. And I would go into their page and all these people are majority of people who are born here or people who are raised here. And I don't see that representation. Many times I felt that. In fact, I did not even used to see indigenous people. Forget about immigrant representation, right? And it was very disappointing in the beginning. Then I've gotten used to the landscape now. So I ask questions on, hey, are you hiring someone who is not just from, are you hiring for skills or do you have a DEI quota or do you have DEI policies in place? How do you hire? So when I have these conversations, you get to know the organization better, is what I feel. But no, having said that representation matters, can you share how you use your position to advocate for growth and prosperity of other immigrants? Or I think, you know what, I should take the immigrants out of the conversation. I'm sure she is going to give a very neutral answer.
Well, okay, so maybe just to start off, I mean, to be honest with you, as I grew in my career, it took me a while to realize my position and how powerful it is for underrepresented groups, right? So, the first comment that I'll make is kind of related to what we talked about, is treat people like people. I'm just like anybody else in this organization, and that's how I view myself. But I also appreciate how other people have approached me to say, I noticed you because of X. You represent so much. And it's just, people just say to me, it's so cool. But even one time I went to a Filipino gathering for work, right? And someone said to me, oh, it's so cool that you're here, even though you're like high up in the ranks, right? But again, I'm just like any one of you, right? I've went through the struggles. I get it. And I think that's important. So in short, not forgetting where you came from is very, very important. And not losing connection with those people, I think, is meaningful, right? If I didn't show up to that, like, what kind of message does that show that I am a person of power, yet I don't make the effort to actually be part of this group, right? But like I said, like every little thing I do counts because it means a lot to them. So I have to say, first off, it is a privilege. So I don't take that for granted. And I do try my very best to do what I can above and beyond. And how I can do that is, to be honestly, is continue to represent, right? So to be present in meetings, to be present in projects, to always put your hand up, but to also be a voice in a very constructive way, right? There's ways to do it. I don't want to be the person who just keeps saying, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
right? But it's always reminding them, hey, as a gentle reminder, this is what we need to keep in mind, right? Or if there's a project, wanting to be involved, because the more we put ourselves up there, the more it's going to improve. And then in anything that we do, I always try to remind people, okay, I'm not implying that you've done something wrong or you've made the wrong decision, but always keep in the back of your mind, what impact does this make, right? And oddly enough, people appreciate that, right? And again, it's not that you're doing something bad, but it's just, okay, planting the seed. Like we got to keep planting the seeds, which is really important. So I do my best. I feel like I can do better, but I'm trying. And I also think that, to your point, patience, right? Like I can't change the world overnight. And I've realized that. But the more you continue doing it and the more you just showing up is enough, I think.
Showing up is enough, actually.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised how many people are there but don't show up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they're a name, they're a voice, but they're not present. Or they're not attending things, representing things. They're not taking the time to say hi to people. Like again, it's little things that really count.
But it is so simple, like you said, when people have to, you just have to stand up and show up and share that, hey, you know what, I'm here. And if you have something, you can just reach out to me. Not many people do that. And thank you for doing that. I've experienced that. So I should say she's amazing.
I try. Yeah. But like I said, I know I can always do better, right? But to your point, admitting that you can do better means that you're aware.
Yeah. Right? And you're willing to learn.
Exactly. And that's all we're asking for is like, don't hide it under the rug. Yeah. Nobody's perfect. But like, wake up.
Yeah. All right. I think we have spoken about a lot. We have spoken about your family. We have spoken about your leadership. We have spoken about your journey. We have spoken a lot. Okay. I'm going to pause there. I'm going to give you a chance to ask me a question. Anything you want. Tables are turned.
Okay. Now I have to think.
Take a time.
Okay. So my question is, currently where we work, we know we have great diversity, right? Something to be really proud of. But when we think about DEI, there's two other pieces to it, right? So what do you think are some key things that we can do or organizations can do once they have diversity to really hit the equality component and inclusivity?
Okay. When I moved to Canada, when I started working, everybody kept telling me you should learn about Canadian work culture. And many immigrants go through the same phase. You have to learn about Canadian work culture, integrate with Canadian work culture. You have to speak in a way. You have to. I understand all of that. But how many people who are born and raised here and have never worked in a different country are educated about different work cultures? I've asked that multiple times. And when people, we give them cross-culture communication training. That's not the same. So, like example, you highlighted that the person who worked in your team came from a Japanese work culture. Japanese work culture is very different. You work for like 14, 16 hours a day. You're drowning in work. You still take more work. And holiday is not 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It is just one day. And if you're taking one more day, it is considered a sin or insult or something like that. And many countries have culture that is similar to it. Say example, if I have to say, like I said, India is a very urgency culture. Everything is important, everything is urgent, everything has to be done now. So I don't panic. So for me, the biggest learning that I have from Indian culture is even if you give me something in the last minute, oh okay, we can figure it out.
Yes, yeah.
I don't panic. Now that comes to me as an advantage. So when people reach out to me, when leaders reach out to me, I also want, from my perspective, to ask questions around, hey, how would your culture work in this situation? Nobody has ever asked me that question. I've been working here for 3 years. I connect with a lot of immigrants. I'm very active in the immigrant community. Nobody has ever asked this question. No leader has ever asked this question, which is very saddening. I remember when I was working in the previous organization, we had a discussion. So our boss used to give this opportunity where one of the team members can lead the team meeting. So it used to change every week that we have. And then I asked this question to a Nigerian. Uh, she came up with a very good point, and I asked this question. Okay, how would you do it in Nigerian work culture? Maybe we can learn from there.
Mm.
Everybody looked at me. There was this moment of silence. It was so sad. Everybody looked at me. I was like, oh my God, did I say something wrong? Was it not acceptable in Canadian work culture? Or that was, I think, as much as immigrants are educated about Canadian work culture, people who are born here, raised here, have only experienced Canadian work culture should also be educated about other work cultures. That is very important, and many organizations miss on doing that. If you learn about another culture, maybe ask somebody to just share a story.
Yeah.
You don't have to do a full day session on it, which ask to share a story. Oh, this is how we would get it done. That will give a lot of perspective on why the person is that way. Not just you cannot stereotype the culture, obviously, but at least you will know why the person is the way they behave, or the words that they use, or the way they dress. You will come to know, or how many languages they speak. The country that I come from, there are 32 registered languages and 700 dialects. Like, I can speak 6 of them, but nobody really knows that because I'm only speaking in English.
Right.
Right. So I think that has to be something that organizations should do, in my opinion, to make it more inclusive for and feel welcoming for and increase belonging for the immigrants. And I think the same goes with indigenous cultures as well. Indigenous cultures, language has been deleted from history for so long. And the same goes with indigenous history. There should be a place where people talk about their culture. There should be a place where they talk about, learn basic words from your team members' language. How hard can that be? Say thank you. Simple, right? When you say thank you in English and you expect us to say thank you in English to you, why don't you learn to say thank you in the language that we speak? How hard can it be? That will feel both non-majority, when I say non-majority, I mean indigenous and immigrants, feel more welcome. And that was very big.
Okay. I really like that answer. I have a few ideas.
Okay.
After we're done about work. I know it's not supposed to be about work. So,
yeah.
But no, I really like that. And I think maybe not really a question, but more a comment. We talked a lot about support and community. And maybe one of the things I think is also important for all of us to support on is to also help all of us be more accountable. Right? So what I mean by that is, like, I could be a better leader, and I know I'm not perfect, right? But then I would love to hear feedback or other people tell me, hey, Joanna, I need you to do this. Hey, can you do this? Because I'm a visible minority, I also don't know all the things that I need to do, right? But the more we help each other, the more, we can all get better. And same thing, that I can approach people in a safe manner to say, hey, I know we're all trying to help each other out. I think you should do this to help in the situation. Or I think you should do this better, etc. So accountability, helping each other be accountable, I think is important.
She said it in very corporate terms, but yeah.
You can do your little tagline, whatever it is.
Yeah. So when we post this on LinkedIn, maybe I will tag her and say, help each other make accountable. Said by Joanna.
I have so many other taglines.
There are so many. I'm sure there are so many.
Okay.
But thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you for taking the time. And
you're not going to thank me for promotion because that's not what this is.
Happening. That's not happening. But
that's not what the handshake is.
When I said I won't be fired, I also should have said I won't be promoted for this.
But you're not getting fired, so you're welcome.
Yeah, not getting fired, which is good enough. Which is good enough. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. And when I just reached out and said, hey Joanna, you want to be a part of the podcast, and you clearly said yes, of course, with that excitement, and that really was very encouraging. And we are using her office today. You see only the walls, but maybe I'll take a picture of her office and then post it online and say, hey, this is how the office looks. Thank you for sharing your office space with us for the recording. And that's it. I think thank you isn't sufficient enough, but
yes, you're very welcome. It's just very fun. I was, as you know, nervous before coming in, but once you start, I'm a talker, so.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Nice. Bye everybody. Remember to subscribe. If you have a question to Joanna, I will tag her LinkedIn in the description. You can reach out to her. She's very welcoming and inclusive, as we already spoken about her. And if you have a question for me, I'm sure you're already stalking me on LinkedIn. But if you're not, I welcome you to cyber stalk me on LinkedIn. I create content. I enjoy creating content as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. We are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you listen, wherever you watch. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you have a question, or just post it on the comments. We are happy to answer to you. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.